Josh Hamilton is one name that will often spark heated conversations among baseball enthusiasts for his abilities on the field and his problems off of it. He was the epitome of natural talent. Whenever he played, you couldn't help but acknowledge the fact that he was exceptional. Sadly though, his reputation today is quite the opposite of what it could have been, and his name now only comes up as an example of someone who once had it all but threw it away. You can't help but wonder how it all went wrong for this major league star who seemed to have had the world at his fingertips. Born on the 21st of May 1981 to Tony and Linda Hamilton in Raleigh, North Carolina, Joshua Hamilton started to show potential from a very young age, and by the time he got to high school, he was already a local champion. It's not every day you come across a high school player clocking 97 miles per hour on the mound. However, it wasn't just his lightning speed on the mound that set him apart from his peers. He was also a force to reckon with whenever he was at bat. Even from a young age, he was already hitting home runs, hitting a record 13 homers during his senior year of high school, while also adding 35 RBIs and 20 stolen bases. He was clearly headed for the very top, which is why it probably didn't come as a surprise when he was chosen as the first overall pick of the 1999 MLB Draft. The Tampa Bay Devil Rays didn't need any help understanding the value a blue-chip prospect like Hamilton could offer. After putting pen to paper on a lucrative deal that saw him take home a signing bonus of just under $4 million, Hamilton had a lot to prove, and just like other rookies, his first stop was the minor leagues. Well, if the baseball world needed any assurance that Hamilton was refined and talented for his age, he certainly didn't waste any time in showing them the stuff he was made of. By the end of the 2000 season, Hamilton had registered a total of 118 hits in 96 games, along with 13 home runs and 61 RBIs. He also took home the MVP award in the South Atlantic League All-Star Game and was voted Minor League Player of the Year to crown his stellar season that year. At this point, it was clear as day that Hamilton was on the fast track to Major League stardom. However, tragedy would soon strike, and the wind would soon be taken out of the sails of his smooth ride to the top. Prior to the start of the highly anticipated 2001 season, Hamilton and his parents were involved in a serious auto accident that left them all severely injured. His parents had to return to North Carolina for treatment, and that meant that Hamilton was all alone without his parents and, most importantly, without his beloved sport to keep his mind occupied. It was overwhelming, to say the least, and according to Hamilton, it was in that moment of weakness that he lost his sense of direction and succumbed to the use of alcohol and cocaine. Little did he know that it was about to change his life forever. The long-awaited 2001 season finally arrived, and the young phenom who was predicted to take over Major League Baseball had his progress significantly delayed due to a back injury sustained in the car accident. And on top of that, he picked up a new fondness for crack, an addiction that had ruined plenty of baseball players before him. He would later make a return that same season, but would split time between Double-A and Single-A. The next season started on a much better path as he played with the Bakersfield Blaze, hoping to put the horrors of 2001 behind him. But after making an impressive start, batting .303 with 9 home runs and 44 RBIs in 54 games, his lingering injuries would surface again, ending his season. He had hit rock bottom again, and this time the addiction had taken a stronger grip on him. He would go on to fail his first drug test during the spring training of 2003 and get demoted to the minor league camp for his nonchalance towards training and team activities, before eventually taking the rest of the season off for personal development. His troubles snowballed at the start of the 2004 season. He was handed a month-long ban for failing a drug test, and then a season-long suspension after failing several more. But then came the 2005 season, and by now, Hamilton himself may have been tired of the off-field controversies and maybe hoped to finally kickstart his career. However, old habits die hard. Controversy had struck again, and Hamilton was arrested for smashing the windshield of a friend's truck. That was the last straw for his employers, and the Rays finally dropped him from their 40-man roster. But if they had hoped the decision was going to set him straight, Hamilton was quick to prove them wrong after another relapse saw him suspended again for the entirety of the 2006 season. It was deja vu all over again, but this time he had truly hit rock bottom. Not only was his young career on the brink of ending, but he had also just separated from his wife and mother of his 3 kids. He was a wreck, and according to him, he didn't have anywhere to go, so he returned to his grandmother's house. Perhaps that was where he finally found clarity, because he soon reconciled with his wife before returning to training a short while later, thanks to former manager Roy Silver, who offered his facility. Now 26 and yet to make a single major league appearance, the once next big thing was basically without a team. On top of that, he was required to take 3 compulsory urine tests every week to ensure he wasn't still using drugs. But all that may have been unnecessary because, by the looks of things, Hamilton was finally ready to make something out of himself in the baseball world. Sure, it took a lot longer for him to come to his senses, but better late than never, right? Well, since he didn't belong to a roster, Josh had to wait for the 2006 Rule 5 draft. At the draft, Hamilton was selected 3rd overall pick by the Chicago Cubs, who immediately traded him to the Cincinnati Reds for $100,000. That was a stroke of good fortune for him, because it was only in Cincinnati that things began to look up for him again. Coming into the 2007 season, the once-embattled player had already established himself as one of the best hitters for the Reds in spring training, and they had no option but to add him to their 25-man roster. The stage was set again for the now not-so-young youngster, and on April 2, 2007, he finally made his major league debut against the Chicago Cubs in what was an emotional pinch-hit appearance applauded by the fans with a standing ovation. He would later make his first start 8 days later, where he showed the crowd what he was capable of doing by hitting his first Major League home run, which was also the first of several stellar performances that saw him clinch the Rookie of the Month award in his first month. But then, after a series of minor injuries, Hamilton ended the season playing as a center fielder and ultimately conceded the Rookie of the Year award to Ryan Braun. However, his solid stats were enough to remind everyone of his natural talents. Hamilton's first season culminated with more change. The Reds had traded him for the duo of Edinson Volquez and Danny Herrera. His 2007 season was solid, but it sure didn't prepare Major League Baseball for what was to follow. He had once again impressed in spring training to seal his spot as the starting center fielder before taking the league by storm again. His early impressive performances were enough to secure him the April AL Player of the Month, and this time there was no slowing him down because he also went ahead to clinch the award for back-to-back months in May. His revival didn't just end there, though. As a matter of fact, his best days were still on the horizon, and on the 9th of July, he hit his first career walk-off home run. These performances were more than enough to earn him a selection as one of the starting outfielders for the 2008 MLB All-Star Game, where he was one of 7 first-time starters. He was chosen to participate in the Home Run Derby, where his total of 35 home runs was the most in the Derby. He was finally enjoying his long-awaited time in the spotlight after dealing with so many personal demons. As the 2009 season approached, his name was on everyone's lips. He was set for another record-breaking season, but little did he know that injuries had other plans. Sidelined for a significant part of the season, his production declined. In all, the 2009 season couldn't end sooner for Hamilton, and when the 2010 season came, he was fit and ready for action. This time, he was deployed as a left fielder to make room for new center fielder Julio Bourbon. Another productive season earned him a 3rd consecutive selection as a starter in the Major League All-Star Game. He was truly unstoppable, and not even a broken rib could stop him this time because after a short period on the sidelines, he was back hitting home runs. His .359 batting average led the league, while he also smashed 30 home runs and had 100 RBIs. He'd put up these incredible numbers despite missing 29 games due to injuries. He was just beginning to realize his full potential. He had also dragged the Texas Rangers to their first ever World Series. Although the team eventually fell to the San Francisco Giants in the series, Hamilton claimed the AL Players' Choice Award for the most outstanding player, along with the Silver Slugger Award. And as if that wasn't enough, he was also voted the American League Most Valuable Player to cap off a highly decorated 2010 season. Moving forward, the talented star's career continued to shine throughout the 2011 season when he led the Rangers to another World Series, and then in 2012 when he registered multiple career highs. His 4 home runs in the 10-3 win against the Baltimore Orioles saw him become just the 16th player in Major League history to do so in a single game, while his total of 18 bases was also an AL record for a single game. With this, he completed his 5th All-Star selection, and this time he completely shattered the record for the most fan votes in history with over 11 million votes. It seemed he had overcome his difficulties and was beginning to secure his legacy in the game. After a successful 2012 season, the Rangers agreed to let Hamilton go, and on the 15th of December, he put pen to paper and signed with the Los Angeles Angels on a 5-year deal worth over $120 million. But if the Angels had hoped for a repeat of his success with his previous employers, they were in for a rude awakening because it seemed like the now 32-year-old was already past his prime. If anything, his time in Los Angeles was the complete opposite of his success in Texas, as he struggled to stay fit and he saw a sharp drop in production. And to make matters worse, his inability to regain his previous form had driven him to another drug and alcohol relapse. It was truly over for his career this time, and not even a second stint at his beloved Texas Rangers could change that. He was ultimately released from the team in 2017 after being sidelined with injuries for 2 years. It was, indeed, the end of an era that was nothing short of a roller coaster experience. Hamilton played his last professional game in 2015, and despite his struggles with addiction, there's no denying that he did enjoy periods of peak performance in the spotlight. In his 9 seasons in the majors, Hamilton featured in over 1,000 games, posted a career batting average of .290 and scored 609 runs, hit 234 doubles, while also recording 200 home runs and 701 RBIs. Of course, he was most prominent for the Rangers. His time with them earned him an induction into the Texas Rangers Hall of Fame in 2019. Hamilton was definitely a joy to watch on his good days, and there's no denying that he was one of the most naturally gifted players that Major League Baseball has seen in a long time. But ultimately, his struggles with addiction prevented him from reaching his maximum potential. In his 2008 autobiography, Beyond Belief, he said, "Drugs had destroyed my body and my mind and my spirit. I could no longer experience happiness or surprise. I couldn't remember the last time I felt spontaneous joy." Today, the fans who knew him well fondly remember his brief time at the top of the baseball world, while others will only recall the giant shadow of addiction that haunted him throughout his career.